A few years back, I purchased one of those robot vacuums from Amazon. Mine was called a D-Bot something, Deebot. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it was like $300 or something like that. And when I got the thing, I was pretty immediately like underwhelmed with it. It kind of ran around the house randomly, and there was no good way to really get it to clean a certain spot. You'd kind of like use a little controller and drive it where you wanted, and then hit a button, and it would like spiral out from the center and then spiral back in, and that worked okay. But otherwise, it just wasn't a very solid product. Now, granted, this was several years. I said a few years back, and realistically, it's probably closer to like 6 or 7 years back at this point. Time has a funny way of slipping away from you. That brings us to today, though, because I was walking through Walmart, and I turned my head and saw this. This is the Wyze robot vacuum, and they had it on sale for $149, regular price $329. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you know that I have a Wyze thermostat, Wyze home sensors, Wyze cameras everywhere. I'm pretty much all in on the whole Wyze thing. So when I saw this for $149, I text my wife and I said, I'm about to do something stupid, and I bought this thing and I brought it home. Let me just tell you, the upgrade from where I was before to this thing is unbelievable. I am no vacuum expert, but what I can tell you is that this thing is extremely useful to me. So obviously, you can see here this big thing up top here. That is I believe that's where it's housed. That is a Lidar system that it uses to map out your house. This was one of the coolest things I have ever seen. When you first set this thing up, it's going to drive around your house, and you can hear this clicking sound, tick, 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 as it drives around, and it is literally using LiDAR to map out your house. And you should be seeing a fast-forwarded version of my house being LiDAR mapped right now on the screen somewhere. And it did a really good job of figuring all of that stuff out. And then whenever it's done mapping everything, you can go in and tell it what room is what. You basically can name the rooms. Now, sometimes it gets a little confused about what's a room and what isn't. So I had to merge some rooms it created and then split up some other rooms that it didn't think it needed to create. But that was very, very simple. And at that point, you can just go into your app, pick a room, and say vacuum. And this little dude's going to come out, go to that room, vacuum just that room, and then go back home. It's fantastic. And on top of that, the performance of it is pretty solid. You have 3 different levels of suction power, suction force that you can set it to, ranging from kind of loud but like quite strong down to quieter, more stealthy, but not quite as impactful. So there's actually a decent amount of settings you can dive in and kind of customize on this thing. So here we are. This is my Wyze app, and I'm going to go into Robot Vacuum. And you'll see here in just a moment, it's going to show me the map of the house, which you actually should have just saw me kind of make. And you can see my no-go zones there, right? There's areas that I don't want it to go in. So you can add those little red blocks in. So it's just going to avoid that area, which is really, really cool. We're going to vacuum the living room. So let's click on living room, and let's click on vacuum. And so as you just heard it audibly say, we are starting a room cleaning. It will drive out just a little ways, and it's going to do like a couple of spins here. And I believe what it's doing is it's using that LiDAR potentially to sort of orient itself and find out where it is. And once it knows where it's at, it is going to turn on the vacuum, which mine is set on a high power setting, and it's going to begin its way to the living room in this instance. And it has reached the living room. So the first thing it does, this is probably a little bit loud, but it's going to kind of go along the perimeter. Usually is what it does anyways. It'll kind of go along the perimeter of the room. And like this table was not here whenever it scanned, but that doesn't matter. It's going to just kind of go around it, and it's going to do the best it can to vacuum around that table. You'll see it here kind of go inside, I bet. Yeah, it'll get in there as far as it can. It's kind of, too big to get in super far. But it's going to go around the perimeter of the room, and then after that, it's going to kind of go back and forth, which I'll show you what this looks like on the map whenever it's done. So you'll be able to see here what it's doing. The little white dot is the vacuum. There's a little table there that's in the way. The circles, there were a couple of my dog's toys that it's just kind of trying to go around it. It's actually very intelligent. You can see that it went all the way around. This is where my couch is. It's like a sectional. It went behind the couch and back around in front. And so it's trying to just sort of get that perimeter done. And then once it's done that, once it's gone around everything it can possibly go around, it's going to start zigzagging back and forth in the open parts of the room. You can see now that it's headed back behind the couch again to kind of get another swipe at that. Okay, so we've just completed the living room, and in fact, there it goes. It's going back home to plug itself back in. Basically, it just backs up to a little. I guess it's like an inductive charging thing. It's like a little strip of metal that it backs up against, and that's how it charges. It is on its way down the hallway to that charging point, and you can see here that it was quite thorough, right? You can see that zigzagging pattern I mentioned that it did all through the room. You can see a few spots where there was, an obstruction in the way, something in the way that it could not quite get around. But, if there is something in the way, it's going to go as close to it as it can. And if that thing's gone the next time, it's going to get that spot. It does the best that it can. And I honestly think it does a pretty good job. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go look at the vacuum a bit more closely, get a look at the actual hardware of it, as well as how you open it up to clean it out, to dump out what you've just collected from that vacuuming session. And I think it's pretty solid. I guess I should also mention this too. That was 136 square feet. It lost about 14% of its charge, and it took about 16 minutes. Now, you could also lower that suction level because this is actually turned up to the highest level. So the battery life is fine. This thing could probably clean almost my entire house on the full, well, the entire downstairs anyways, on the full power mode and still not go dead. So battery life seems to be a non-issue. And like I said, when it's done, it charges itself anyway. So let's go look at the vacuum. Let's see how it is to clean it out and go from there. All right, so here is the vacuum itself. We do only have one brush on the front, but honestly, that doesn't really seem to be much of a problem. We have that bumper so that if it does bump into something, it's going to know. Of course, it does have that Lidar back there, and it does a pretty good job. As far as the charging goes, that's pretty much it, right? There's a couple little metal contacts that backs into that, and that's how it's going to charge. Now, you may have noticed here that I've got some tape covering up what is a couple of buttons, and I don't remember what the buttons are. Maybe like home or stop and charge. I think it's home and power. Okay, but you can see that they're very, very bright, and this is right around the corner from my bedroom, and it was just too bright. It was literally keeping us awake, so I had to cover them up. Same thing for the light on the charging thing. That had to be covered up. Now, as far as taking out the dustbin, it's really simple. That thing flips up. You can remove this. Dustbin removed. Somehow it knows that it's been removed. It's got a little hinge there to pop this open and dump it out. There's a HEPA filter that can be replaced. Drop this thing back in there. There's also this little tool that it stores in there that has a razor blade to clean out little clogs and a brush, and that's awesome to have that there because you know where it is. You're not going to lose it potentially. I need to get my tape back in place. It's not sticking anymore. If we flip it over, you see the one rotating brush, which I could probably stand to get rid of some of the clogs off of, and then your main brush here, which can be cleaned by lifting that up and then just lifting it out and using that tool to get rid of any tangles that might be on it. The tires are very impressive. They're rubberized and they're grippy. You can see there how that motor works. There's actually like quite a bit of torque to this thing, so pretty impressive little wheels and a motor. So let's take a moment here now and look at some of your settings. So you can schedule things, which is really, really cool as well. I've not actually done this yet, but let's say you want to say on Mondays at the standard suction level, we're going to do, this particular, we're going to do the hallway on Mondays at a particular time. Like that is a really cool thing to be able to automate, and I do need to dig into that and start actually using it. This is where you can set the suction level, which you can see I have mine on strong, which has not been a problem so far. There is a cleaning history, so you can go through. I don't really know what they're doing with these stars, like how they're like rating it, but you can go in and literally see, here's how this thing has been used, and here's what kind of job I guess it thinks that it did. This is really cool too. It's going to actually tell you how much time is left on your accessories, your HEPA filter, your edge brush, and your main brush. You're not going to have to guess necessarily. Is that HEPA filter still doing anything? Well, it's actually just going to tell you that. Honestly, I've got no complaints with this thing. Are there vacuums out there that are probably better than this one? Yeah, I would say so. But if you can walk into Walmart and buy this thing for $150 right now, is there a vacuum for $150 that's better than this one? I am highly skeptical of that being the case. Now, I do want to point out that it's not available in a lot of other places, right? Let's go to Walmart. Let's go to Wyze themselves, and you're going to see that it's out of stock there, and it's out of stock here. So I'm literally speaking to people who might be looking at this thing at Walmart right now because it's the only place I can find that has it in stock. But for $150, good grief, this thing is stellar. You can see from the state that mine was in, as well as with that screen that I just showed you, that I've used mine a lot. And I've not really had any issues. I love being able to have those no-go zones that, I've marked those out in places where my cables might be in the floor, and it does a good job of avoiding those things and not going up underneath those things and causing any problems. I do wish that it integrated with Google Assistant, the ability to say, hey, go clean the hallway without having to even touch my app would be pretty cool, but unfortunately, that's not a thing. That's probably like the only thing about it that I wish was there that isn't. At the end of the day, I continue to be impressed by Wyze products. They're cheaper than other people's products, and from what I can tell, if they're cutting corners, they tend to be the right corners to cut, and products like this vacuum just seemed to me to be an extremely well-made, solid product that I don't regret buying. I told my wife I was about to do something stupid. This wasn't something stupid. This was actually something very smart because I really like this vacuum. Guys, I put a link to the Walmart listing in the description down below. If you can find it someplace else, good luck. If you can get it for that $150, man, it's a really, really good buy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe before you go. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.